Hi, Ann. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Uh, Still kind of holiday hangover.
Hmm.
Even though I didn't do anything at all for the holidays, it was, well, that's not exactly true. But, just kind of slow start or slow end to the year, and then I'll have to ramp up for the new year. I can tell you're not in your usual abode. Where are you?
I am down at my mother's house in Sugarland, Texas, and I am up in the home office. My brother just left for the gym, so I came dashing up here saying, "Can I use the office since you're going to be gone?" Because I was worried about ambient noise in the downstairs where I've been working. So,
I take it your brother is in good shape.
yeah, he is. He is in good shape. Yeah,
Because
yeah,
he has exercise equipment in the home office. I see it over your shoulder, and then
yeah.
he still leaves to go to the gym. So that guy's got to be in pretty good shape if
Yeah,
he's
he is. And the weight bench and the weights are in my room. So
okay.
I'm getting up
Okay.
and lifting every morning, and then I typically go out for a walk in the afternoon.
You know that I lift every morning myself.
Yeah.
A coffee mug. There it is.
Go. Yeah,
And I'll have you know this coffee mug was made personally for me by my colleague at TCM, Alicia Malone. Made me
very
this coffee mug.
nice. Did
She's
she
she's
did she
she's
like
learning to be a potter now, so she made me this coffee mug. It's a little better than, like, I was just thinking, like, you've seen Bad Santa with the exchange of Christmas gifts and Bad Santa.
I've never seen Bad Santa.
Oh well, it's kind of funny. Okay, I almost talked Kathleen into watching Bad Santa last night on TV, but she said no. I don't think so. I had a memorable experience one time when, hold on one second, I'm drinking my coffee. Uh, I was invited to maybe I shouldn't say this because who knows, maybe it's still a standing issue. But someone had purloined the original cut of Bad Santa from the studio because I believe it was cut here in San Francisco. Because Terry Zwigoff, who lives here, made the film, and somebody managed to get the original cut. They snuck it out of the studio, and I was one of a very small group of people who got to see that film, the original cut with time code on it and everything. And it was pretty uproarious, I have to say.
Uh,
Uh, so not everything that you saw on the final release version was what was shot. There were a few other things that were in that movie as well. Anyway, I'm not going to call it a noir Christmas movie, but there you go. So we had a very successful Noir City Christmas at the Grand Lake. I was very very happy with the turnout. It was wonderful. Makes me think that the upcoming festival will be very successful.
yes. So when is the upcoming festival, Eddie?
January 24th to February 2nd, 2025, at the Majestic Grand Lake Theater in Oakland, California, the 22nd edition of the Noir City Film Festival. And it's funny that I mentioned Alicia Malone because now that the cat is out of the bag, Alicia will be there for at least the opening weekend, where she will be acting as my co-host for the event, and she is, of course, on the posters, which people can see on social media. I mean, if this was a more high tech thing, we'd show you the poster right now, but I don't think we're going to do
Yeah.
that. you'll
I should
you'll see it. You'll have
I
plenty of opportunities to see it.
Yeah, I should have thought of that ahead of time because I probably could have done that pretty easily if I had thought of it ahead of time.
Oh well, somebody on the post now is posting it for everybody to see. I'm sure I guess that's kind of how social media works these days.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put it on the end credits of this as well. How's that sound? I'll switch
Perfect,
out the end
perfect.
credits for this. Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be exciting. And what's the theme this year? I love how
Well,
I answer these questions like I don't know, but this is.
I know. I'm just going to do that. Well, last year was really fun because we did The Darkness Has No Borders, and there was a lot of foreign language movies in the mix, which is, I felt like we ended the year perfectly at the Christmas show because we showed the French film Who Killed Santa Claus, or the Assassinat du Père Noël, and which I thought was really great. And if you weren't able to come to the show, I know, but I have it on a Blu-ray, which I can loan to you if you're interested in seeing it. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool movie.
I've actually
And I
seen it before.
Oh, okay, great,
Yeah, but
great.
yeah, I wanted to see it again because for me, more than the mystery, I think what I enjoy about that film is just seeing sort of these traditions of Christmas in this small village in France. Like it kind of reminds me almost like an Ozu film where you get a real feel for what the culture is really like. Like that was the aspect of
Yes,
the film that I really loved.
exactly. And it's a charming film without being treacly. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of American Christmas movies, if they're not like great comedies or something like Christmas in Connecticut or Miracle on 34th Street is a pretty good movie. But I'm not big on the sappy, sentimental Christmas movies. So this movie had a lot of charm and it had a lot of sentiment in it, but it doesn't go that far. I mean, there's still a murder and there's a whodunit and there's a theft and all this stuff. And it was good, and I think the audience enjoyed it. I was just so happy because I'll be honest, 22 years doing this now, Anne, and I never take any of it for granted because on the way to the theater, I was like, did we do enough or is anybody going to show up? And I was
Mhm.
thinking like, because it came up pretty fast. And although we're very organized, I'm still being a much older person now, right? 66 years old. And remembering when I started all of this and how hard I had to work at getting promotion in the media and all this kind of stuff. And it's just such a different world now that, I'm on my way to the theater and I said, I didn't talk to anybody about this. I didn't give a single interview about this. I haven't done anything. And the theater was packed. It was absolutely packed. So it still surprises me that social media and all, and of course we've done it enough years now that people like have it on the calendar already.
Yeah.
Like, the Wednesday before Christmas is going to be Noir City Christmas, right? So people know that, just like they know the end of January, Noir City is coming back, and we don't have to go to the same extraordinary lengths we went to once upon a time to promote these shows. So it just pleases me no end to have such a loyal audience that shows up all the time for this stuff. It's great.
Even though I'm the same way, I still worry about stuff. Like, did I promote it enough on social media? Maybe I should have done more posting, da da da. And then it's fine when you get there. And it's like, oh no, okay.
And then it is fine. It is fine when you get there, because because and I don't want to. I certainly wasn't intending to go into all of this, but it is great because the fans are so loyal and they become like an extension of our marketing team, right?
Mhm.
Because somebody will say, "Oh, I love going to Noir City," and they'll take people who haven't come before. They'll just say, "Oh, you need to come," and suddenly two regulars become six people because they've convinced two other couples to come, or it's great. I met this wonderful woman there. Her name was Jenny, and her mom was Cindy, and they had come from San Rafael, driven over to Oakland to come to the show. And her mom was just a huge fan of Noir Alley, and she was in a wheelchair. Uh, so at the Grand Lake, unfortunately, you can't get upstairs where we sell all the merchandise. There's just it's a historical landmark building, and they're not about to cut it up and put an elevator in or anything. But I was happy to go downstairs from where I was signing books and everything to meet this woman, and she was just so charming and lovely. And it was the first time they'd come to a Noir City show, so I made sure that they would come back in January and have a ball. Anyway, your question, sorry, went
What
off
was
the
the,
rails there. The
yeah.
question was about what's the theme of the next festival. It's about women. uh, films with not always female protagonists. They're either the protagonist or if they're the femme fatale, the antagonist. But it's all because my Dark City Dames book is coming out again in April. And so I wanted to do the 2025 festival sort of based around that book. And then and I can actually, I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The book, I actually have a copy of the book now. That is the book. Ta-da! It's that thick. And so the 6 actresses that were in the original book, that whole section is expanded a little bit and has new photos and things. And then I profiled 10 additional actresses whose stories relate to the 6 main women, because they all kind of shared the same thing. Of course, the 6 main women I interviewed and knew very well, and the others not always. I mean, Marcia Hunt and Rhonda Fleming and Claire Trevor, I did know, but there's some other ones in there: Peggy Castle and Gail Russell, Helen Walker, Ruth Roman, Jan Sterling. I did know Jan Sterling a little bit. Anyway, you get the picture. So the lineup of films is all their movies. So it's pretty great. And a different challenge this year than last year. The challenge was finding these movies. This year, the challenge is trying to extricate the movies from the studios, because it's getting harder and harder all the time. Even though these, it's almost like the coming year's festival will be like a greatest hits, because a lot of the stuff audiences have seen before. Like I'm showing The Prowler again, our first restoration, and Cry Danger, and a lot of, I'm showing Out of the Past, I'm showing The Narrow Margin, The Killing, Tension, Alias Nick Beale, classic titles. Not all of them are easy to find anymore.
Yeah.
So in 35 millimeter, but I will say 14 of the 24 movies we're showing will be in 35 millimeter, which I consider quite a triumph at this point. So I'm really looking forward to a very, very fun show.
Yeah, and if people haven't seen Alias Nick Beale, I really highly recommend getting to the theater for that one, because I really, really like that film, and it was rarely screened or shown anywhere. So
yes, and as I say in my note in the program, this may be the last opportunity for some people to see these films in 35 millimeter in a movie theater.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be the last time to see them digitally as well in a movie theater, but I would say so this is like, and I'm not doing this as a pitch or anything, but it is kind of a fact that older folks like my age, this is going to be rarer and rarer for, you're running out of time to see these movies in 35 millimeter. And if you're younger people have never had the chance to see these movies in 30, and some younger people have never even seen a film in a movie theater. They've only seen digital stuff in a movie theater. So, and I'm not going to be a purist or anything and argue like you haven't seen it if you don't see it on film and everything. But, to the hardcore, it makes a difference. Other people just want a good experience and a good show. And, that's what we try to provide at Noir City. So,
yeah, we're going to be showing Inferno in 3D. So I recommend that one as well. It's a good film, and it's on its own merits. But
Inferno is it's my favorite 3D movie.
Yeah.
It's my favorite 3D movie of that era. I'm a huge fan of Scorsese's Hugo, which I think is a tremendous film that nobody ever talks about on his resume. But and I loved it in 3D. But yes, Inferno is the best of that era, and a terrific movie with a great Robert Ryan performance.
Yeah.
As I like to say, it's 2 performances, because there's his internal monologue that you hear that was recorded someplace else, after the movie was shot. And then there's his whole performance in the desert where he's trapped,
Yeah.
dying, left by his lousy wife, played by Rhonda Fleming, his spectacularly gorgeous lousy wife, played by Rhonda Fleming. Anyway, there's all sorts of great stuff. We have a few surprises in there. Like, I'm showing this very rare movie nobody knows about, called My True Story, that stars Helen Walker, made in 1951, directed by Mickey Rooney. First movie that Mickey Rooney ever directed, and it's an oddity for sure. But yeah, it'll be a good lineup. No one will be disappointed.
Yeah. And so anyway, you can go to www.noircity.com for all the festival information, including, what do you call it? Program notes and links to buy tickets and passes. And you can see the really lovely job our friend Ted did laying it out. Once again, he
Looks great.
Really
Looks
great
great
job on that. Yeah.
Yes, the whole program is now up on the website. Sorry, I keep leaning out of frame, but I'm having to keep fill this coffee cup. Obviously, people can tell we're shooting this relatively early in the day for us.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
It's a daytime show. Oh, and just, yeah, Dark City Dames, for people interested, is available for pre-order. So you can, and we've got information about that on the news page, which is filmnoirfoundation.org. We have a news page on there, as well as a TV listings page. And I got to get the TV listings done today for Ted. So
I know, it's funny. This is like our holiday. We just keep working.
Oh.
Because I'm telling you, we've been working like dogs. Darl especially.
Yeah.
Because we got to get out all the programs for the upcoming festival. Those all have to go to the printer like now. So we do the souvenir program, the tabloid program, all the stuff that we do, putting the press releases together. I still owe you all those photos for the press photos for the festival. And that's just the festival. Then there's all the other stuff.
Yeah, there's just all the regular stuff that we do too. I guess we need to start thinking about the newsletter as well now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, the magazine is
coming
done.
Out.
The magazine is done and coming out. That'll be. I'm very happy with the way that issue turned out. So yeah, a lot of stuff. And then of course we've got the annual, the Noir City annual that's coming out, which Michael Cronenberg has also designed that whole thing, and that's gone to the printer. So
will that be available to buy at the festival?
It will. It will. Yep.
So yes, and people can actually pre-order that as well, I believe, on Amazon. Can they pre-order? I can't remember.
No, I don't think you cannot pre-order the magazine. Yeah. Or no, I'm thinking the magazine. I
was thinking about the.
I'm not sure. You can order it. You can order it when we
print it out, which will be
set it up for that. And I don't know that that's set up yet. I mean, there's so many moving parts now. Okay. All right, enough of the pitch stuff. Let's get to the questions that these folks have sent in. This is,
and these are from like November of last year. I was really bummed because we were almost only a year behind, and then I know that we've been off for quite some time, and I appreciate everybody's patience, but it's sort of one thing after another. And also, frankly, I just had a horrendous cold for weeks and weeks that I just didn't want to be coughing and spluttering while we were trying to do this. And then also it's just been crazy for a lot of other reasons. Okay.
Yes, it was kind of insane though, because from doing the Noir City in Washington, D.C., then it was I went on the TCM cruise, and then there was the Noir City in Philadelphia, actually Phoenixville, and then all this other stuff that I'm talking about, getting the festival going and everything. So it has been hard to fit another one of these in, but here we are. Let's get to the questions.
Okay, great. And let me bring this up so I can see. So this is from Ed from Washington, D.C. And let's see what Ed's question is.
I think, yeah. Can you not see? Because I can see it. If you want me to read it, I can see it.
I got it. I recently
Okay.
saw Le Trou at the Noir City DC Film Festival. I had two questions about this riveting film. I was unable to attend the day you introduced the films. One,
Well, we'll
is
see.
there
Maybe I have the answers.
One, is there good information on whether the film captured exactly what happened in the escape attempt, including the role of Gaspard in the film? Two, the film suggests the prisoners made a large amount of noise in the process of trying to dig their way out of prison. I found it rather amazing the prison guards did not hear any of those noises. Were the prison guards and management that oblivious to what was happening? I do not intend to make this sound overly critical. Overall, I found the film quite fascinating, especially since all the shots, except for one, took place inside and underground.
Um, I I am actually not an expert on the historical background of this film. Our colleague Imogen Sarah Smith, pardon me, knows much more about the behind the scenes part of this film than I do. I know that uh, Jose Giovanni, who wrote it, was part of that escape attempt from the prison, as was the actor, the dark haired actor, whose name escapes me at the moment. Roland, I think his name was in the movie. But he comes right out at the beginning of the film and announces that he was part of this breakout attempt. He's obviously a free man at the beginning of the film, but um, my suspicion is, and I will add that most of those actors were amateurs, uh, not just the real convict who's in the movie, but most of the act. Michael Constantine was, I think he had made 2 or 3 movies before that, and he's a familiar face from French films. But this was very, very early in his career. But the other the other convicts in the cell were all amateur actors and just terrific, I think. But I do have a feeling that Gaspard, who I can't really explain who he is in the film without spoiling it for people, I think he was a completely made up character for the movie. I'm not entirely sure about that. And as for the noises, what can I tell you? I mean, as far as I know, the movie is pretty. Even though it's not actually shot in a prison, it was shot at Jean Pierre Melville's studio. All the interior prison scenes were shot at his studio, but I believe it was a pretty accurate depiction of how these guys actually tried to escape. So the noise thing is just the noise thing. Maybe it was prison was prison back then. They didn't have sensors and lasers and stuff like that. So it could just be that there weren't enough guards, and when they left the block, only the other prisoners were probably hearing that, and they're certainly not going to say anything. Well, I can't say certainly not going to say anything. But anyway, thank you, Ed, for coming and seeing the movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It is a personal favorite, and um, I'm there was a real pleasure this past year to introduce that film to so many people. Okay, Ken from Oklahoma says repeat performance is closely tied to New Year's Eve. Haha, you'll be in for a surprise if I don't know when our little episode is airing, Ann, but I'm showing repeat performance
That's
on New
true.
Year's Eve on TCM.
And people that read
Uh,
the TV listing page knows that. So read the TV
okay,
listing
okay, very good.
page.
It's actually really fun, and I do not intend to come on here and hype anything that I do on TCM, but um, it's fun because the 5 hosts are all together for New Year's Eve, which rarely happens, and we each pick a film that we want to show on New Year's Eve, and repeat performance was obviously mine. Okay,
Yes.
so but Ken wants to know: can either of us recommend classic film noirs that coincide with other holidays? I'd be curious to know if there was a film noir that you could associate with Valentine's Day or St. Patrick's Day. I don't know about St. Patrick's Day. I don't recall any. I mean, there are like scenes, right? Wasn't didn't the Heath Ledger Batman one have a scene of St. Patrick's Day parade in Gotham City? Wasn't that a scene? But I mean, it obviously has nothing to do with the plot of the movie, really. Um,
Sorry, God told me to just flashed in my mind because there's that whole sequence and God told me to set over St. Patrick's Day.
the great Larry Cohen.
The great Larry Cohen. Yeah.
God told me to. But we know about the Christmas movie, and I'm sure there are other. I don't believe that Repeat Performance is the only New Year's Eve noir. There are other noir films that have scenes that are set. But St. Valentine's Day, I don't think so. I remember not that long ago I looked up what the deal was with St. Valentine's Day, because isn't it even a real holiday? And then you realize, yeah, there is a European holiday that was created like centuries ago to honor St. Valentine.
Yeah. It's a feast day.
Yeah, but in the States, it's just weird. It just seems like such a manufactured holiday, like, for the candy industry and for, buy roses, buy candy, good for the restaurant business, all that stuff. It seems like a business holiday to me more than but that's just my cynical self.
Yeah.
So, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, that would be it, but that's a gangster movie, not really a noir film.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I can't think of a lot of holiday, other than these are my Christmas noir, but I'm trying to think of any other holidays that might be covered. Nothing's really popping to mind.
Well, if people want to help me out with programming on TCM, they can suggest movies related to holidays, because I always when I'm scheduling this stuff, I try to think of because it's difficult, because I always end up like with a Memorial Day show.
Yeah.
And it's like, what can I show for Memorial Day? And when you're noir films, it's kind of limiting, and of course noir films are going to be kind of a snide sideways tribute to because if I show act of violence and Crossfire and stuff like that, it's like, that's not really honoring our fallen soldiers, is it? But it's so like for Easter, I'm showing this year, I decided, what can I show on Easter? And I hope I'm going to show The Setup.
Yeah.
Because it's a resurrection movie.
Yeah. and the end scene is like the Pietas. It's based on the,
So, it's like, that's as close. And, on Mother's Day, one time I showed Mildred Pierce. That was pretty obvious. Yeah. And then another time I showed White Heat. That was like a good Mother's Day movie. Not so easy to come up with like Father's Day movies or, Arbor Day or something. I don't know what to do. But it just so happens that, because TCM does a lot of programming based around, the day, the holiday. But I'm having trouble picking up on noir films. So timely question, Ken, because I'm trying to figure this kind of stuff out right now. So anybody who wants to offer some ideas, I'm listening.
Yeah, it seems like it's easier with horror films. Like horror films have like every holiday covered, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But they didn't really do that with, because there's a lot of exploitation films. And of course, Black Christmas and then Halloween kind of kicks that off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, this is from our friend Joe from Suffolk County. When I was much younger man, I watched The Killers for the first time and subsequently read The Killers for the first time. I remember being taken aback by the story's ending and the inventiveness of screenwriter Anthony Valier. I still think it's great how he starts with a close telling of the short story and then moves ahead in time before using flashbacks to take us to a time before the short story. Great. Yeah. Sorry, great short story.
Great short story, great movie, great storytelling.
Thank you. IMDb lists John Huston and Richard Brooks as uncredited writers. Can you share any information about the collaboration?
That is true. I would not give too much credit to the inventiveness of screenwriter Anthony Valier. He didn't really write the script. John Huston and Richard Brooks pretty much wrote the script for the killers, and their names aren't on it. Our colleague Alan Rohde wrote a really good article in the Noir City magazine a few years ago about this very subject, and it was that Huston was actually under contract to Warner Brothers. So when Mark Hellinger wanted him to write this screenplay, he had to do it incognito. And I think he did. I think he took a leave or something. I believe that because this was still, the war was still going on, and I forget what happened because Huston had just come back from his service or something, and he did this before going back to Warner Brothers. He wrote the screenplay with Richard Brooks because he was kind of short of time. Pardon me. And Brooks at this time was not really a known entity. And Hellinger just gave him a percentage of the profits from the movie instead of putting his name on the film because he was so adamant about promoting the movie as Ernest Hemingway's The Killers that he didn't think it was right to have as a, adapted by Richard Brooks when nobody knew who Richard Brooks was. Anthony Wheeler at least had a number of credits under his belt. So that was the reason why that happened. And then Brooks like immediately hit, right? He wrote the screenplay for Brute Force right after this, and then he wrote the film, I think it's called Crisis. And then everybody knew that, man, this guy can really write. And it was really a short time from when he wrote this screenplay. It was like 4 years, not even 4 years to him directing his first film, and then went on to become a really, I dare say these days, somewhat of a forgotten writer, producer, director. Richard Brooks was really a triple threat and was top of the list in Hollywood for quite a while, and until he wasn't. Anyway, so that's that story. Shall I move on?
Yeah.
Richard in New York wants to know, outside the USA, was there a true noir movement, as Mr. Muller described, where a set of studios are making over 10 films each? Well, I don't think that's a prerequisite for anything, but it was true that in Hollywood, every studio was making at least 10 of these a year for a number of years. This is a tough question to answer, Richard, because it's hard to gauge how this, what I call the cross-pollination, works. It has a lot to do with film distribution, and if you wanted to prove that this film inspired another film, back then, pre-internet and all that, you had to know for sure. Sorry, I won't touch my thing there. I made the screen bounce. You had to know for sure that a film was distributed in that country.
Yeah.
Right? Like when we say, oh, these European films were definitely an influence on Argentine filmmakers, we know that those films reached Argentina and were shown in cinemas in Buenos Aires and all that. So it's like you're not going out on a limb. Otherwise, it is kind of a bit of a gamble to say, oh, this Japanese film inspired this or that, when you don't really know that film was distributed overseas, or where would the filmmakers have a chance to see it, and also, let's face it, Hollywood is the biggest film factory in the world at this time. So the movement is going to be massive, and they're trying to satisfy a much, much bigger market than if you're making films in France or Germany or something, where you're primarily making them for that market, and it's much smaller, and you're not going to have as many prints. You're not going to get as many overseas sales of the films. So it's harder to say it's a movement in the sense of quantity, like how many films were made. But to me, there's absolutely no question that this stuff went every which way. And in many cases, it was because the filmmakers moved as well. Like leaving Europe, they didn't all all those European film directors didn't come to Hollywood. I mean, a lot of them went to Argentina, a lot of them went to other countries, went to England. So to me, there's just no question that noir was everywhere. Just the movement at that time was really the engine was Hollywood. Let's put it that way. And the stuff was all over the globe.
Yeah,
I hope that makes some kind of sense.
because I know, like in England, Hammer Studios, I mean, they did a bunch of noirs before they started doing horror films. So definitely,
Absolutely,
that's the one I
absolutely.
can think of off the top of my head.
And like in Japan, there were definitely studios that were doing noir. Nikatsu, of course, was kind of famous for its crime movies, and Argentina Sono Films. I would say that what we've done six something Argentine restorations now. I believe that at least three of those are from Argentina Sono Films. Um, so yeah, and obviously there were studios in France that were more inclined towards this especially in the 50s. But yeah, there just aren't that many studios that concentrated on just the one thing. Okay.
Okay. This is from Dennis. Any love for I Walk Alone? One of those noirs that seem to slip under the radar, yet it's got a great cast, music score, and noir tone. For the longest time, it seems like one of those films that was hard to find. I believe it only recently got a home media release. I love it.
Um, Dennis, you're right about all of those things. It was hard to find. It was a Paramount film that sort of slipped between the cracks. And 10 or so years ago, maybe a little more, Andrea Callis, who runs the archive at Paramount, was kind enough to see to it that it got scanned, that the original negative got scanned, so that we could actually show it. And I was surprised. We showed it, I don't know, 12 years ago or something, and I was surprised how long it took to get to home video after that. It's got all those things that Dennis talks about, but I still don't think it's a particularly great film. It feels a little stage bound to me because it was originally conceived as a stage play, and it all centers around the nightclub, and I think they got a little. This is my only real criticism of the film, is I think they got a little torn between opening the film up and then just leaning into the fact that it was a stage bound thing. And in some ways, I honestly think the movie might have been better if they just never left the nightclub and just made it like about this nightclub, because I just think that the other scenes kind of fall flat. And I don't think there's very good chemistry between Burt Lancaster and Liz Scott in this movie.
No, I
He
think their
just
chemistry is terrible, and it just feels like a slog in the middle. I'm not really a huge fan of it.
and it but it is an important film, and it's interesting that Dennis, that when I redid Dark City, The Lost World of Film Noir, the revised and expanded edition, this was one of the most significant additions that I made, was talking about I Walk Alone, because it is a very important film thematically in the history of noir, because in 1947, and it clearly is an important film showing how the 30s became the 40s, because these guys were like rum runners right out of a Warner Brothers gangster movie at the beginning of the film, and then they become, or at least Kirk Douglas becomes a classic noir villain of the 40s because he's a successful business guy, right, running a nightclub, but he's really a crook. So it, it has a lot going for it, but I think it should be better than the sum of its parts. But Wendell Corey is great, and Douglas is great. I think Burt Lancaster is a little bit much in this film. He's like trying to prove that he's a huge virile star, And it's just interesting to note that when that film went into production, Liz Scott and Christine Miller had different roles. It was Christine Miller that was actually going to be her star-making part. She was going to be Lancaster's love interest, and because she was also a Hal Wallace contract player, and then Hal Wallace, of course, got in a relationship with Liz Scott, and he switched their roles and boosted her instead of Christine Miller. You can see her, Christine, in a lot of Hal Wallace productions where she's like this. She's also fulfills that role in Too Late for Tears, where she's the good girl who doesn't have the juicy role, whereas Liz Scott gets the villainous role. So
Yeah, I'm not really a huge Burt Lancaster fan. Just to throw that out there. There's some things that I really, really like him in. And
Sweet Smell of Success.
Yes.
Sweet Smell of Success he's
incredible.
unbelievable.
That is my favorite performance of his, and he's amazing in it. That's a great performance. Yeah, that's one of the ones I really like him in. But there's other stuff where I was just like, I don't know, like John Huston's film, The Unforgiven. Like, I don't particularly care for him in that. I love Audie Murphy in that. That was a nice role for Murphy. And of course, John Saxon, probably because I couldn't believe anybody wouldn't have run off with John Saxon in that film. So
I know what you mean about Burt Lancaster.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to be cast in the right thing, when he's just being big, heroic, beefcakey Burt Lancaster, he can be a little much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I thought, like, with All My Sons, that was just, I thought he was terrible. I'll be honest with you. And the film would not have gotten made without him.
Correct.
Because that was his baby, and I'm grateful for him because there's so many fantastic performances in there. I don't care for the female lead in that very much either, but obviously Edward G. Robinson and the woman that played his wife. She's
oh my God, she's fantastic.
She's just great in it. And then also, oh my God, Howard Duff.
Howard Duff is really good.
Incredible in that film. So, like I said, it's kind of one of those things where you're going, yeah, but the film wouldn't have gotten made without him. So you're just gonna have to, but it's just, I felt he and the female lead just felt so like, just not on. Granted, their parts weren't as good either. I mean, they're not as interesting characters, particularly.
Oddly, a Burt Lancaster movie where I think he's really good, where a lot of people just dismiss it completely, is Sorry, Wrong Number. Because
he's great in that.
I think he's fantastic in that film, and it's because he's with Stanwyck. Stanwyck makes him so much better in that movie. Because she, and a lot of people complain that she's too old to play that role. And I just think that's ridiculous because I think it's one of her great performances.
But it also works for the dynamic between them too.
Totally. They're just saying that when they do the flashback scenes to where they're in college, they both look way too old. Pardon me, to be in college. But to me, that's like, come on, put a little work in, a little suspension of disbelief is okay there, I just like the way he played. I felt that role was close to him. Like he understood that character. He was so ambitious, and I think he used a lot of his own personality in that role, and he was really, really good. Anyway, that's a different movie. So, am I?
You're on 6.
Okay, this is our buddy Lauren from Chicago. Said, thanks for answering my question about noir musicals in a previous Ask Eddie show. Gee, what year was that? I'm so wheezy. I apologize for my wheeziness this morning. It's early. I did some research and found a number of noir musicals that I think qualify. You can throw them by Eddie and see what he thinks. Well, there you go. The best noir musical is Chicago. Well, I can't argue that that's a pretty noirish story. You also have Carousel. I'm drawing the line before that. King Creole. Yes, I'll go along with that. Robin and the Seven Hoods, the Cotton Club, and the noir children's musical Bugsy Malone.
I mean,
Well,
Bugsy Malone's a
Robin,
gangster film.
absolutely, as is Robin and the Seven Hoods. Those
Yeah.
to me are gangster musicals. The Cotton Club, that's exactly what they were going for. They were
Yeah.
going for a film noir musical, exactly. Um, so I'm not going to say no, it's not, because that's what it is. It's kind of like I'm tempted to say that Scorsese's New York, New York is also kind of a film noir musical, but it really isn't, because the storyline is more soap opera-ish. It's just his Scorsese's style leans toward noir to begin with, so he's copying a lot of stylistic stuff. Uh, it's just his idols, Vincent Minnelli and Stanley Donen, and he's kind of
Yeah.
imitating them.
Oh, I just wanted to promote because it's up on Canopy now, but the Powell and Pressburger documentary is up on Canopy now, and I just wanted to really recommend that to people. Sorry, Martin Scorsese's, that's kind of his baby, and he
Yeah.
narrates it. And that's why it popped into my head. So sorry, I just wanted to give that a quick promo since I saw that up
Thank
on.
you, thank you for that, because I still haven't watched it, and I'm intending to watch it, and just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, that was my opening night movie for TCM last year. I went to see that. And
Cool.
and it was packed. I was really happy about that.
I do think that King Creole does qualify. Elvis Presley noir,
Yeah.
directed by Michael Curtiz. It comes in late in the cycle, and it's but certainly, and yeah, it's hard to argue about Chicago. It's just so, I don't know how old that movie is now, but it still feels kind of recent to me. Chicago's 20 years old,
And
25 years old
I
now?
was still living in
I don't
Seattle.
know. Yeah,
So
that was a long time ago at this point, but it was good. I remember enjoying it very much. Anyway, um, just I've never had success showing anything that was considered a musical on Noir Alley. I know that much. And don't look for a Noir City festival based on musicals. That is not going to happen. I might slip one in as a day, like a musical day, right? We showed now that I think about it, I showed Love Me or Leave Me, the Doris Day movie, as part of Noir City, because it
that's
was
because you
such
love
a
Doris Day.
I do love Doris Day, and it had it had elements of noir. The woman, trapped by her gangster lover husband, and it's a true story, the Ruth Edding story. Uh, and it doesn't look anything like noir, but it certainly has a noirish storyline to it. And I just wanted to figure out a way to put Doris Day. Doris has been in a few noir cities, right? We showed
Yeah,
Julie.
which is great.
Julie kind of qualifies as a goofy ass film noir. And I don't know, it probably won't show Midnight Lace anytime soon, but in Store Morning, right, that
Yeah.
Doris Day is in, we've definitely shown that. Anyway, okay, not a Doris Day question. Moving on.
Yeah, and just to mention too, we have shown some dance musicals. Because we showed Spectre in the Rose, which has the
Spectre of the
stabbing
Rose.
dance in it, as my ex still calls it, and the Red Shoes, which I
Red
was so
Shoes.
excited because I had held out on watching that movie because I wanted to see it in a theater, and I was thrilled when you showed it, and it did not disappoint me at all. That
That
is
was a great night. That was a
yeah,
great night in our city. That was a hell of a double bill. And Spectre of the Rose was the perfect film to follow the Red Shoes, which is a film that you can't follow with an ordinary movie. It has to be something really unusual, and it has to be short.
yeah.
And Spectre of the Rose certainly qualified.
Yeah, plus I needed to calm down with the Red Shoes so I didn't start randomly killing men. God, that film doesn't make you hate men. I do not know what film will.
Anton Walbrook. You mean yeah,
Both of them.
yeah,
Both
yeah.
of
I know, I
them.
know.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with either one of those men at all.
That
At
movie is
all.
is so fantastic.
Oh
That,
God, see,
that is just
it is incredible. It's one of those films that, I heard about and heard about and heard about. Because back when it was meaningful and critics would do their top 10 films of all time, that one would always be up there. And it really does live up to its reputations. And I think it's just an incredible film about being an artist, an incredible film about being a woman artist and being a woman and dealing with men, and such a great female protagonist.
yep.
Such a great female protagonist. One of the greatest of all times, I think.
And there are two or three sequences in that film that in a movie theater, in that restored version that the Film Foundation did,
Oh, that's
that
beautiful.
that are just breathtaking. I mean, your heart just starts beating so fast, and it's like, this is so extraordinarily great. Yeah, that is a hell of a movie. Okay, but Bud wants to know if there's a compilation of songs that are in all or most of noir films. Has anybody put together song scenes? I'm not sure I understand completely. Do you know what Bud is asking about?
I
Because
think
at first I thought he was saying like a an album of songs from noir films.
no, I think his thing is being like someone editing together like all the scenes from
Mm,
songs from film noir, sort of like that's
I am not.
entertainment for noir. Go on
Yeah,
YouTube. Seriously, type in YouTube. Somebody must have done this at some
yeah.
point.
I would guess.
Yeah.
I would guess. But it's funny that you ask about that, Bud, because those are usually the scenes that stop a movie dead in its tracks, or like just when they're doing this to shoehorn in. Like we were talking about, I Walk Alone. The musical numbers in I Walk Alone are there oddly as like star making moments.
Yeah.
Like now Liz Scott's going to sing, and of course it's not Liz Scott singing anyway.
Yeah.
And that's what's so funny about most of these scenes, like the numbers in Gilda. It's not Rita Hayworth singing. Uh, so I don't know if those things, if that's ever been put together, but I do know that there are tons of wonderful albums primarily by female vocalists who draw on film noir. Uh, you know, going all the way back to Carly Simon,
Yeah.
who put out an album called Film Noir, and then our friends Laura Ellis and um, Melissa Errico, who is a big Noir City fan. She did a whole show as the femme fatale chanteuse. It was really good. Uh, I know that there's a singer in Vegas, Laura Schaefer, I believe, that is like the Noir Nightingale.
Yeah.
Uh, and yes, so there are a lot of albums that collect vocals. Laura Ellis, our Laura Ellis, who sings most years at Noir City, she's done that. She did a whole show, a cabaret show where she sang songs from different
Hmm.
noir films. Uh, and there are all kinds of music collections, film noir music. I think I have like a whole shelf over here that's all compilations of noir music, mostly soundtrack music, not vocals and stuff. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, and I do think sometimes the songs in noir can be really great. Like I know a lot of people don't like them, but I really like Veronica Lake's two musical numbers in This Gun for Hire.
yeah, they're fun. They're
I
they're
love both
fun.
those.
Yeah.
And
But
and
see,
then
that's my point exactly. Those are shoehorned in as like little star making moments for her, because she's so appealing and wonderful in those scenes. They don't have anything to do with the plot, but they're fun.
yeah, and I think too, like I always thought the scene with Gloria Graham and Bogey when they're at the piano bar is such a great moment where I think
Oh
that
yeah.
the song really does add to the scene. And then I felt like The Man I Love was one where
Yeah.
the nightclub scenes really worked as with the overall part of the story.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. I think The Man I Love, that's the movie I was trying to think of that was a huge influence on Scorsese's New York, New York.
Oh yeah, I can see that
I think
now.
The Man I Love was the movie that he was kind of imitating in that film. And yes, that's the great Hannah Brooks in A Lonely Place,
Yeah.
singing Till There Was You, I believe is the song. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's such a great, that to me was like a perfect use of using a live performer in a film where it really
right.
feels like it's really kind of,
Yeah,
it's like,
Nick
yeah,
Ray
I mean,
was
it's just
really
good.
good at that. Nick
Yeah.
Ray was really good at
Yeah.
that. He also did that in They Live by Night when he had I think it was Mary Fields singing Your Red Wagon, which was the original title of the movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was particularly good at working music logically into films, which is why because he did the noir musical Party Girl,
Oh,
where
that
he
movie.
tried to do the same thing, like figure out logical ways to work the music into the plot, and it was a rocky road because the studio wanted more music, and he was like, I don't want to just have the music appear for no good reason. It has to be part of the plot, and it kind of works and it kind of doesn't.
Yeah. I have a real soft spot for that movie. I really like that movie a lot.
It's very stylish
Yeah.
movie.
And this is Liz from his Hillsdale, New York. Do you consider the Whistler series noir or not? I think there are mystery series with supernatural elements, more or less, but not noir. Also, Richard Dix is terrible. He is good involved with the ghost ship, which uses his dipsons to great effect. But in these films, he is pure cardboard
Pure
opinions,
cardboard.
please.
Okay,
Okay,
you
I
go
like
because
Richard Dixon. He's
yeah, this is right up your alley, Ann.
let me defend Richard Dix. No, I think they're definitely noirs. I mean, there's not really a supernatural angle to them. I mean, because the Whistler isn't really a supernatural series, right? He just sort
Right.
of he's more of a narrator. Sorry, I'm doing the Whistler. There's hilarious Jack Benny parody of the Whistler called The
Yes,
Fiddler. It is sorry, it's just
no.
hilarious.
I know you're a big fan of these movies. I know.
Yeah, I am. And I think especially, oh, I'm blanking on the name of which one it is, but there's one where this woman sort of picks
I think it's The Power of the Whistler,
the
right?
power of the whistler, where you begin to kind of wonder if Richard Jix is like a serial killer. And it is like so good because it's very suspenseful and he's actually really scary because he's kind of a
He,
big guy.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and he's very threatening. And then there's also, some good sort of husband and wife stuff, and not in that one, but another one. So yeah, I would consider them very much Moors because I don't think they're very supernatural. I mean, because it's not really, like I said, because the radio show wasn't particularly supernatural either. It was more of an anthology series of people doing
Yeah.
things that were wrong because people are like that. So I mean, because the radio series I would also consider a Norse series like Suspense was, especially when Suspense at the 40s and
Hmm.
50s. Um,
And one of those Whistler movies is based on a Cornell Woolrich story. I can't
yes.
I can't remember which one. It might
Um,
have been Power of the Whistler. I'm not sure.
yeah.
But yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, to me, they're very much like I think of them as noir the same way I think of the Val Lewton movies as kind of
Hmm.
noir. I mean, I actually the Val Lewton movies have more of a supernatural
Much more.
element.
Yeah.
Certainly, I walked with a zombie and stuff like that. But um, yeah, there was all this stuff floating around in the 40s that was all anticipating the Twilight Zone.
Hmm.
Like I think
Hmm.
Rod Serling must have seen all of this and said, "Okay, we're going to do a TV series, and this is exactly how it's going to be." Because there was just a lot of those uh, borderline supernatural things, either done as standalone movies like Flesh and Fantasy or something like that, or a film series like The Whistler.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, yeah, I agree with you about Richard Dix. I mean, he can be effective. Let's just put it that way. He
Yeah.
can be effective even though nobody's going to mistake him for a good actor.
Yeah, he's not Shakespeare.
No, no,
He's not a
no, no, no.
Shakespearean actor at all, but I still like him. Okay. Did I read the last question? Do you want to read this one?
Okay, hold on. I'm just
It's
listening.
long.
I'm hearing something banging around downstairs, and just want to make sure it's not Tizzy.
Oh, it's from our friend Jan from Sweden, which, by the
Jan in
way,
Sweden.
we're watching right now down at my mom's wall under, but it's really weird
Yeah,
because it's actually the series with Kenneth Branagh, but they filmed it in Sweden, so it's kind of strange because you feel like everyone and like so when they go show an email on screen, the email's in Swedish. It's really weird because I mean, obviously they're Swedish books, and then they have a series of films with an actor I really like. When I want to go back and watch those, and then they did the Swedish TV series, and they did an English series with Kenneth Branagh that they filmed in
interesting.
Sweden. Yeah, which is just they didn't like completely. You know what I'm saying? That's just weird. I
Hmm.
cannot think of another series that did something like that. That was in kind of in between of shot in their or country of
Yeah,
origin, but
yeah.
with
No, I
all
can't.
English actors.
I can't think of one either. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, Jan wants to know if we think Man in the Net is a film noir. One of the if it is, it's a well, it's a Curtiz film. I can't remember where it fits in his 50s scheme of things. And he also wants to know why Curtiz's film The Scarlet Hour is so overlooked because it was so hard to see. That's why it was overlooked. He says maybe The Breaking Point was his last great film, but The Scarlet Hour certainly is a noir. Do you think that a part of a film can be noir while the rest of the film is not, or only slightly? And then he wants to mention two such films, Blowing Wild. The first part of the film is a mixture of The Treasure of Sierra Madre, The Wages of Fear, and Boomtown. But when Stanwyck appears in her femme fatale best, it turns into a noir. And another film, Lust for Gold, the part set in modern times is only slightly noir, but the flashback to the Old West with Glenn Ford and Ida Lupino is very much noir. Can you think of any more films that are only noir in part? Well, the question is, I mean, are they really noir? Or are they just playing with the style to make a point quickly because people were then understood with, like, I think of the Pottersville scene in It's a Wonderful Life, where It's a Wonderful Life suddenly becomes a film noir in the middle, and you even have Gloria Graham in it, right? So, um, I, I I have to confess I have not seen Blowing Wild, so um, I'll check it out, and I do feel that Lust for Gold has a definitely a noirish through line in the plot that certainly I get why if you were doing a noir western series, Lust for Gold would fit right in clearly. Um, and the Scarlet Hour is totally a film noir. It's funny that Michael Curtiz has made a number of appearances in this episode without ever having a question specifically about him. And Man in the Net, I'm going to say is that's one of those 50s noirs that if it was made in the 40s, no one would question whether it was a film noir or not. Yeah, have you seen this with Alan Ladd and Charles McGraw has a small role in
No,
it?
I don't think so.
Um, yeah, I mean it's pretty noir, but it doesn't visually it's not. It does. It
Yeah.
looks very very flat, which kind of surprises me because I think it was made before. I think it was made before the Scarlet Hour, but the Scarlet Hour really looks like a film noir. I think Curtiz was specifically saying, "Oh, I'm going to shoot this like I did back in the '40s," and he certainly makes Carol Omart, the femme fatale, is very much in the mold of earlier femme fatales, and she's photographed that way. And um, so, yeah, I don't think there's any question. Man in the Net and Scarlet Hour are both completely film noir. Have you seen Blowing Wild?
I have not seen Blowing Wild. I have not seen Lust for Gold. I have not seen Man for the Net. I went to see The Scarlet Hour. Don't tell Alan, but I actually fell asleep, which was not a reflection on the film at all. I was just exhausted, and that happens
Does
to me from
happen.
time to time. Not
Does
very
happen. Yeah.
often, but I just like went out cold during that movie, which was, I think it was because it was like in the middle of our festival. And I was just exhausted from, attending and
Tell me about it.
stuff like that.
No, my
Yeah.
greatest fear is that see, that's why I rarely, sometimes I really want to watch the movie with the audience, but I don't because I have a fear of falling asleep and somebody's going to take their iPhone and take a picture of me like drooling out the side of my mouth because I'm so tired.
Yeah,
I don't need
yeah,
that. So I just, if I'm going to feel like I'm going to fall asleep, I fall asleep backstage or something.
yeah.
As we do put in long hours.
Yeah, even though the one time I fell asleep in a film, I think it was to an advantage, and that's when I saw Alphaville. Do you ever want to fall asleep during? It was great because there's
Oh
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hypnotism scene, and I was actually coming in and out at that point because I was really tired. And Alphaville's a
Sometimes
great film
that
for that.
works. Sometimes
Yeah,
that works when you get into that really dreamy state where am I watching this movie or am I dreaming this movie? Sometimes it's fun. I'll like put a film on my laptop and go to bed and just have it play and I'll start to fall asleep and it's like a third movie appears, it's like, oh my gosh, there was because it's your conscious mind is absorbing it and then your subconscious mind is absorbing it and then there's the actual film, but that's why I say it's like three different movies.
yeah.
Anyway, okay, we're getting down to it here. uh Dan sends in the last question and he says, who do you think was the best overall film noir actor? He votes for Richard Conte because he's very good in many highly regarded movies, including Cry of the City, but also in B-type movies like Highway Dragnet. Well, I love Richard Conte. I mean, he's terrific. But Anne, how about you?
Oh
Are you going to
God,
say Dan Duryea
I
just
don't know if he's
because you love
he's
Dan Duryea so
he's
much?
my favorite, which isn't the same thing as the best. There's
Correct.
favorite and best. I mean, I lean towards Bogart for that. Um, yeah,
I don't think there's.
yeah,
I honestly don't think there's another answer.
yeah,
I think it has to be Bogart, just
yeah,
because of his significance
yeah.
in kind of creating the archetype of the noir anti-hero. He kind of did it,
Yeah. Well, and there's also so many different roles within the genre, too. You know what I mean? It's not like he
Yep.
played just one type of noir character. He was sort of all over the place, protagonist, antagonist, kind of both. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So yeah, I think that. Also, I just think Bogart's a very fine actor as well.
Yeah, and also I mean, he was the bridge between the 30s and the 40s. And
Yeah.
I know there's an interesting article in the upcoming Noir City magazine about angels with dirty faces, where the writer uh, makes a case for Jimmy Cagney kind of changing the style of acting in that movie from what was representative of crime pictures in the 30s. And then he's kind of arguing that Angels with Dirty Faces was the transitional film. I don't know if I entirely agree with that, but it was a pretty well reasoned case and it's a good article. But to me, it's Bogart. I mean, his style was so different when he made High Sierra and the Maltese Falcon. Uh, I mean, and if you throw in Casablanca right there, it's like he's playing an outlaw, he's playing a detective, and he's playing the jaded hero in Casablanca. And it's like those are the three shades of Bogart, kind of. And then everything was some variation of those three characters. And that doesn't mean Casablanca is a film noir, but I just think his significance because he made listening and speaking more slowly viable for actors in the 40s, and that changed the whole style of performance in noir films. Not just noir films, but it really came out in crime movies. Yeah.
And I just don't think Sam Spade can get enough credit for really, really changing what a protagonist was.
Absolutely.
I think that because even like with um both Casablanca I mean, we've had those type of characters before, and definitely, High Sierra's very much, we've had that character before in terms of just being sort of, the jaded hero that sort of has a redemption arc, and then the outlaw that's still a sympathetic character. Like, I don't think neither of those characters are particularly new. Not this, but Bogart's performance of them is another matter.
Hmm.
But like with the Maltese Falcon, you just really haven't had a lot of characters like that beforehand, because Sam's like the hero, but he's also like borderline sociopathic. He really is. He's really not. I mean, he's a good guy in the sense that I guess he's doing the right thing.
Well, it's just
He doesn't really have any sort of. I mean, it's not like he's cynical, but he redeems himself, or he's sort of like the other two roles,
yeah,
or like a criminal who has a good side. It's just really like he's
yeah,
bordering on Tom Ripley. Just
yeah.
push
I
him a
mean,
little.
there's
You just push him a little more one way, and it could be Tom. You know.
well, that was Hammett's
Oh
thing.
yeah,
It was like
yeah,
this morally ambivalent world where it's kind of up to you to decide how you're gonna play this game.
yeah.
And Spade was such an interesting character in that regard, that it was like, I'm going to do the right thing, because when your partner's killed, you got to do something about it. It's like, well, you didn't seem to worry too much about your partner when you were sleeping with his wife, but what the hell? It's a morally ambivalent world.
Yeah.
So, anyway, okay, that is all of our questions for this go round. So um, let's try to not let's see if we can do another one of these pretty soon, because
Yes.
we got some catching up to do.
We should shoot another one before the festival.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And we'll see.
So,
Maybe we can try to work something. I mean, I already do too much during the festival, but
yeah,
it would be really fun if we could somehow figure out how to do a live version of this,
yeah,
or and if not live, at least like from the festival or
or
something.
something. Yeah, from
Yeah,
backstage
we'll
at the
we'll
festival or
figure it out.
something.
We'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
that would be fun. So I guess we've been talking about each time sort of something we've watched and something we've read. And I just finished up the Ripley novels, my reread of that. But then I was so inspired by Ripley Underwater that I'm down at my mom's, as she has the Ripley novels. And so I picked up Ripley Underground. So I've come back to Ripley
Okay,
Underground
all right.
and like rereading that again.
And
And
which is your favorite of the series?
that's really that's kind of hard to say, because I really am fond of The Boy Who Followed Ripley, which I think a lot of people maybe don't like as much, but I really like it quite a bit. There's something about that story that really appeals to me. I mean, Ripley Underground is kind of great because Tom's kind of off his nut more in that one. Like, where just events are going too fast for him, so he's like kind of scrambling to to keep ahead of everything. So, and then American Friend is just a really interesting story as well. And Ripley Underwater is really good, mainly because I like how two things. One, just that the antagonist in that is so annoying that it pushes you into siding with Tom. And then also at one point, like when he's talking about this guy, Tom talks about like how cracked this guy is, and it's like, Tom, you're a
You're
sociopath.
you're a sociopath yourself. Yeah.
You do understand this, right? That
Well, they never see it in themselves.
exactly. So there's that to it. And then I finally I got Hulu trial for a week just because the third part of the kingdom was up on that. And I really
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
see it because Nicholas Bro and Nikolai Lee Koss was in it, and Lars Mikkelsen, all of whom were fantastic in it. So I got inspired and put it on my Christmas list, the whole series, and went back and I'm rewatching it because I really hate Lars Van Trier, but like the first couple of things he did, I really like when he was funny, frankly, because he does have a fantastic sense of humor. I just didn't like anything sort of, I mean, the whole dogma thing's just fucking stupid. And And then I also, pardon my French, and then also his other films are just so like, the
They
world's
can
not
they can
actually.
they can be a little, but I find I have never turned off or walked out of a Lars von Trier film. I
I mean,
find
yeah.
have you like given up?
Oh yeah, I gave up with what was the one the with the bells ringing at the end. The woman like goes on the boat at the end to sacrifice herself
Oh,
because
this was the one with yeah, I know what you mean, with Emma Watson or
not Emma Watt, the English actress that was in, yeah, that one. That was like literally the last film of his I've seen, and everything else I've
that
just
was a
sort of,
long time ago, wasn't it?
yeah, because it's just like I
Oh,
thought,
because I've seen
yeah,
Jesus. I even watched The House That Jack Built,
yeah,
which is a tough tough film to get through.
yeah,
But I find his movies so different and so compelling that I would never recommend them to anyone, but I kind of just get absorbed in them, and it's like I can't believe what I'm watching, which is you don't get that reaction very much. And I even like, did you see Dogville?
no, no desire to see it.
Dogville was, to me, was really interesting. I thought that was a really bizarre and unusual film. That's where there are no sets. They just block
Yeah.
out the floor plan of the town, and everybody is visible at all times because there are no walls at all. And it was very strange.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't need to go into a Lars von Trier thing, but
Yeah. I mean,
I
I just basically don't like him because one, he created the whole dogma thing, which I think is stupid. And then also,
yeah, well,
I just don't like his worldview. Like, I just don't think the world is that bad of a place. And I really liked his first couple of things a lot. Like his first couple of movies and The Kingdom, I really liked. Because, like I said, he's got what I now know as a dangerous sense of humor, which I really like. The Kingdom is hilarious,
yeah,
especially the antagonism between the Swede and the
yeah.
Danes, which I find hysterical.
Um,
But yeah. What have you read and watched?
I don't know. I've seen a few things. I watched the second season of Bad Sisters, which I really enjoy.
I gotta see
Um,
that.
um, it's noir comedy. It's a noir comedy, and I really like the way it's written, and it's very entertaining. And the women are all great. The sisters are all fantastic. Um, what else did I see? I saw. Well, I've been watching a foreign show called the Cases of Inspector Vrenkel, which is like I can't even tell you. It's like Slovenian. It's Slovenian mystery show, and I just really enjoy it. It's very very traditional and old fashioned policier kind of stuff, but I like that depiction of that part of the world. Uh, Kathleen and I have spent some time there, and it really captures the feel and the light and all that stuff. So that was kind of fun. I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff. I watched the new. Perversely, I watched the new Joker movie because so many people hated it. I said, I guess I have to watch this to see what's up with it. And speaking of noir musicals, which
Yeah.
is what it is, and it was like watching a Lars von Trier movie. It's like I can't believe what I'm watching, so I'm going to keep watching it, and I have no idea um, what I think of it. No idea whatsoever, other than wow, that was unexpected, and I can't believe they actually got away with doing that. Um, so I can't say I disliked it. It was interesting to watch, and but it just goes to show you this is a stupid way to get out of this, but you know well my anti-Oscar thing. I'm not an Oscars person. I don't understand the Oscars. I don't know why there's a competition for artistic achievement. Doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But the fact that Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar for playing the Joker, and then he plays the same character again in this movie and gives arguably a more difficult performance because he also has to sing and dance. And yet this movie will be nominated for no Oscars because it didn't make any money.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody hated it.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you about the value of these awards? I mean, he gives the exact same performance playing the exact same character, and now it will be completely forgotten and written off. Like, don't even mention this movie to anybody.
Yeah, no, but I mean that happens with horror all the time. I mean, you'll see one of the best performances of a year if it's in a horror film. I mean, it's just to see what the substance, if the substance will break the barrier and get nominated for anything. I'm really besides
I also
effects.
saw that. I saw that.
Yeah.
And that I was surprised because for like 3/4 of the movie, it was kind of what I expected it to be. And then it became like an outrageous horror movie in the last 15 or 20 minutes. And I was, I'm not going to say I was disappointed, but my taste is such that it was, I'll tell you exactly what it was. And I know you'll agree with me. It's a modern version of Seconds, the John Frankenheimer movie. That's exactly what the movie is. From a female.
I literally, when I saw the preview, that's why I wanted to see it. I thought, God, this reminds me of Seconds.
Yeah.
I really want to see this because of that. Yeah.
And it was a female version of Seconds, where a guy fears my life is boring. I'm in a rut. I got to get out of this. The woman is like, my beauty is fading. I'll have nothing if I'm not gorgeous, blah, blah, blah. Got to hand it to Demi Moore. She really, she went there. She totally went there in this movie. And it was pretty remarkable. So again, I watched it and I enjoyed it as much as you can, I'm not a huge body horror fan, but there was something about the way, I can't remember the director's name, but she did a really good job of doing the horror because it's gross, but it's also funny. It's also, there's a lot of humor in this, black humor in the film. And at no point is it like, I can't watch another minute of this. You keep watching it because it's so compelling.
Yeah, and I think that body horror definitely, I mean, like I said, I was very clear about that when I reviewed it on Facebook because I wanted people to be prepared for that, because that is something where I would say, but I think, like you said, it's handled with humor, which really takes some of the sting out. Like, it's not like The Color of Outer Space, where, I mean, it was a great film, but the body horror in it, like, was just devastating. It was so like, oh, so, and and it wasn't like that because there is especially there's a humor to it in a way at the end when it goes really over the top. I was actually, well, I was already had someone complain that I gave too much away the last time I talked about this. So
all right. Be careful now.
Yeah.
Be careful now. But also the direction and the substance was so stylish. It was there's a lot of Kubrick in that film and the way she frames things and which honestly distances the viewer from what's happening so that you're prepared to watch all this grotesque stuff.
Yeah, and I think also the way it's sort of out of time as well. Like, you can't really pinpoint when this stuff is actually taking place because there's so many, I forget what the word for it is, but incongruities in things that you're not even, so you couldn't even definitely say
I mean, it's clearly like a fantasy fable kind of thing that is none of it actually makes sense, but I always, my taste is always on the restraint side. So I loved the film. I really, really enjoyed it. The whole mystery of, I'm number 503 and you go and pick up your box from the locker in the alley and all this stuff. I loved all that stuff. Then at the end, when it just goes completely off the rails and it's just like freakish horror stuff, I'm watching it and I'm kind of chuckling to myself like, oh my God, how far are they going to go with this? And then you realize there is no top there. They will keep going further and further with it. And then it's just kind of like, in some ways, I think the more extreme it gets, the more it's letting the audience off the hook, because it gets so outrageous, especially the final shot in the film, which is just absurd. But there you go. Anyway, they were good. Hats off to those actresses.
Yeah.
And Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley really. And hats off to the director. I'm embarrassed to say I'm forgetting her name right now, but she did an incredible job to persuade those two actresses to go where they went in that film, which is like, I can't think of other actresses that have appeared naked like that in a big movie.
Yeah.
And that's the simplest part of it. It's just being naked. The rest of it is like, holy God, what's happening in this film?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like one of those films where the nudity didn't bother me at all, because it's like, well, yeah, that's like an intrinsically important part of the story she's telling, because
Absolutely.
it's about women's bodies. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
and God loved Demi Moore for like, this is my body. This is where I am right now.
That was hardly.
No, she looked great. I'm just saying that. But when you that's the point of the story, is like the comparison to this younger woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And like that was really great subtext to the whole film.
Yeah.
And testimony to the intelligence of this movie. Kathleen watched the whole thing.
I wondered how that went.
Yeah, which is like, I was completely expecting her to just like, nope, done. I'm out of here now. And she hung in even through the really, really grotesque, violent stuff, She hung in there. So, because she got the underlying point and it resonated with her. So she found it very compelling. Anyway, okay. I gotta go. Speaking of which, she just came home and I gotta go make her lunch. So
okay, I want to take my walk before the sun sets here. So
and before your brother comes back and wants his room.
Yeah, so I need to move my stuff out of here. Exactly. He's gonna want his room back.
Okay, so we promise, folks, we promise. Sorry we hadn't talked in a while, so we got discursive and went off the rails there a little bit, but I hope that wasn't so bad.
We've done worse, I think. We've been
okay
before.
All right, and we'll be back soon.
Yes, soon. I promise. Sooner, less of a break this time, I promise.
Okay, very good.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good to see you. Bye.